Can I ask a more logistical question?
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Now get down to brass tacks.
Just wondering, as a businesswoman that I am, I listened to you on Jasmine Star's podcast.
She's great.
All the things you said were amazing. And I'm like, I need you to map out your businesses for me. I want to know how you make money. I really do, because you have a really, what's the word?
Eclectic?
Effortless way of talking about it. And I'm like, okay, so you do the content. I know you have a couple agencies on the back end, but kind of like map out how your businesses work.
Yeah. That's a nice way of saying it, effortless. It also could just be like sound like a fugazi, and you like, what are you doing back there? So there's a few things. I mean, the media business itself is all of my kind of like channels that go out that you see. Mm-hmm. None of those are really monetized directly. Obviously, like some of the platforms make a little bit of money, but the main thing that's monetized from a business standpoint on the media side is my newsletter, which just has sponsorships. And, the newsletter now reaches about 800,000 people twice a week. And so the sponsorships are actually, like a brand will pay $10,000 for one of those sends. And if you're sending it 10 times a month, like it's not hard math to do that. There's a good business there. I reinvest the vast majority of that into growing the newsletter to reach more people. So it's not like I'm just taking dollars and like, I'm not like coming in here like money bags from a newsletter. But it's a good business that exists there. Then there's kind of two separate things outside of the media business. And by the way, the media business will have other things in the future that kind of branch off that, eventually a book and, other stuff that'll come. Outside the media business, there's kind of two pieces. There's my venture fund that I run. So I have $10 million venture fund. There's no like near-term cash flow from that because I don't charge fees. It's all like longer-term investments, carried interest in the fund. And then the holding company, which is really the bulk of this. And that is anywhere from like 20 to 100% ownership in, I don't know, it's something like 10 businesses today that all independently generate cash flow and all independently have people running them. So I'm not actually involved in the like day-to-day nitty-gritty operations as CEO of any of those. I am effectively like chief business development officer or like chief strategy officer of them, in that I use my platform to drive eyeballs to those businesses. So examples there would be like the agencies you mentioned. I own a newsletter growth agency. So it was the team that was helping with my newsletter growth that we then productized that. And now they service the newsletters of some of the largest creators in the world. That's, a monthly like high ticket services business.
And you get a percentage of that.
I own a big chunk of that business. So it has a CEO that runs it,
so and I just profits at the end of the day.
Every month we just distribute out profits from the business. Because a business like that will run that one runs at probably about a 50% profit margin. So if we're charging clients anywhere from $4,000 to $15,000 a month, depending on what they need. You just don't need that many clients in a business like that for it to be distributing a pretty meaningful monthly check to the owners.
I don't want to hog the.
No, I know because So why Scout's asking this is because we've been trying to figure out ways to innovate, even in the podcasting space. Mm-hmm. People come to us all the time, as people came to you, like, how do I start a newsletter? How do I make content? Whatever. And you have been able to transfer that to, I'm going to own this business and do this for other clients, but take myself out of it because we cannot do the operations of those types of things. So we were thinking from a podcasting standpoint, how do we, field all the questions we get about starting a podcast? How do we do that in a way where we're not in the nitty gritty day to day, but there is like an ownership in, is that a network? Is that like what?
And not just that, I own an agency, and hearing you talk, I want to die on the floor because you're like, I just own them. I'm like, fuck me. How do I get to just own my agency? Like that leap, what you are talking about right now, I think you talk about it on podcasts, and I think it might go over some people's head because you have to really like own a business and be an operator and put your blood, sweat, and tears into something to realize that leap from CEO-ship, like even what Mady and I are talking about, taking that model and doing something here, it is hard.
It's very
hard. It is hard to go from launching and running a business to being the owner. And that gap is impressive that you've been able to create. And that's why I'm so interested in talking to you about these things, because maybe it doesn't come easy to me and Mady. I don't know. Like, you could speak for yourself. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm too involved. Maybe I'm too afraid to let go of the reins, etc. But what you're talking about, one, is not spoken about. No one talks about this. And two, for entrepreneurs who have been in the game for 5 years, that's their fucking dream. Mm-hmm. What you have is the dream. And I'm trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I
start a business around it and I'll be your client.
Yeah. There's kind of like two mental models, if you will, that I think are kind of helpful. So the first one that I thought about a lot when I was starting on the creator journey a few years ago was like Amazon and what they did with their web services business.
Yes.
And so the whole idea was like Amazon was spending tons of money on all of this like server and compute power to run their e-commerce business. And so they had to build up this like enormous server stack in order to fuel the e-commerce business that was on what people knew about Amazon. And what they realized was that that was actually equally, if not more valuable. And there were tons of startups and businesses that would pay to have access to that stack because they needed it to run their growing businesses. And so they started renting out the thing that they had built, and they turned a cost center into a profit center. And I wanted to take a similar approach on a much, much tinier scale of like, what am I spending money on every single month as a creator or as a business person? And how can I turn that into something that is now a profit center for me rather than something I'm spending money on? So the newsletter one's a perfect example of that. I was paying this team every single month to run the back end of my newsletter because I just wanted to write the damn newsletter. All I wanted to do was write and think. And I didn't want to worry about growth funnels and, marketing and sponsorships and like ads, all of these other things. And so I paid someone to do that. What I realized was I'm not alone in needing that skill set, needing that thing to be done. And so because I had paid this person, and this leads me to my second idea, which is being client zero of a company is a really powerful way to test this out, because I was client zero of that newsletter company. I was just working with the guy. I got to know him really well as a result of working with him. And then I trusted him. I knew the quality of the service he was going to deliver was really, really good. So launching the business with him was a really easy step because I knew exactly what the customers were then going to get. No capital up front. You don't have to like pay for people, because that's like Mads and I could do something like this, right? But I'm like, you and I would be doing the thing that's adding more work. Right. Like we're trying to hack a world where we're not putting in more work to make more money, but we don't have the capital to bring something up. So that's what I was wondering, how that how that balance happens. Yeah, and a lot of these, I mean, an agency business like that is usually cash collected up front, and then you deliver the service for the month. And now it's expanded. Like the newsletter one is one example, but now, another example of something like this was I was paying video editors to edit different clips for me. I was paying copy, designers, like people for all these different areas of my business, and I was hiring them and finding them as a pain. Getting them, like managing benefits and payroll and how you pay them, especially if they're overseas, it's really hard. And so we launched a business to do that, to place creative talent into growing businesses. And like, again, that's a great business because you either get a placement fee up front or you get an ongoing recurring embedded talent fee that the companies are paying you. So there's just like the biggest principle to all of this, by the way, is when I worked in finance, which was the first 7 years of my career, I basically had this impression that the only way to make money was to work in like professional services. I was like, you have to either be a lawyer, a doctor, a consultant, a banker. You just have to do one of these like stable tracks if you want to make a good living. And then I started to realize when I became more of an entrepreneur that there's basically infinite ways to make money. You just kind of have to open your eyes to it and like do one sort of well. You don't even have to be the best person. Like you don't have to be the Amazon or the Facebook or like the Snapchat or whatever the fancy company is. You just have to deliver a service that people need a little bit better than they're currently getting it. And if you can do that, you can build a great life around it.
Yeah.
We'll chat.
Yeah.